Hello and welcome to Affinity. When you take a photograph of a moving object like a car here, your exposure may use quite a high speed in order to freeze it, but the problem then is it doesn't look like it's moving. So clearly this is. So what you want to do is add a little bit of blur to it to show that movement. There are a few approaches you can take to this, and we'll start off with perhaps the most intuitive, which is we can take a selection brush and we're going to paint around this. So literally you got the snap to edges on and very quickly go around here. You don't have to be terribly accurate for this. Hold down the Alt key here to paint away the things you don't want to include, and add a bit more in here. There you go, that'll do for that. You don't need to be accurate, as I said, because it's going to be blurred. So that gives us this. So now I'm going to create a mask. So there I've got that selected. I hit Control D to get rid of the things here. I'm actually going to hit Control J to duplicate this and then take the bottom one here, and I don't need the mask on it, delete that off. So I've got a top layer with just that selected. So I just want to blur this, and so what I'm going to do here with this layer here with this masked off is to add an adjustment here. If I go to Live Filters and go to the motion blur and then increase the radius here, and I get a blur. But what you notice here, it goes forwards and backwards at the same time. So let's drag that in here so it's a child to that. The reason it's appearing on top there is because on the Assistant Manager here I've got Add Filter as New Layer. Right, so and if I put the bottom layer on, I can see here, and again it's blurring in two directions, so I want to constrain that. So a way to do that is with another mask, because you can stack masks up, and so it only applies across here. Though actually I can apply it. I want to apply it to the motion blur, so I can use the built-in mask to this. So what I want is a gradient going across here, with it appearing at the back here but not at the front. So I want the gradient to be black here to say don't apply it, and white back here to say do apply it. So I just go to the gradient tool here and make sure the type is linear. Then I'm going to drag from the front to the back here and go a little bit out there. Then click on the circle there to say, and I don't want that to show, so I want that to be black. And then the back one here, that's grey, but I'll just make that white so it's maximum blur. And so there we go. And there we've got movement in the car. And that could be enough, but it's a little bit of a faff. And there's also a general problem with this in that it's not extending very far. It would be nice to have this kind of going further. One way of doing this is to take the motion blur and hit Control J, and it literally duplicates that effect. And you're copying the gradient as well. But still, it would be nice to have a little bit more stretch and things like that on it. So maybe I could even take this here, and maybe I could use maybe a mesh warp or stretch or something. But it starts to get messy, so I'm not going to bother with that. In fact, I'm going to go back to the beginning. So I'm going to take this here, hit Control J to duplicate it, so I've got a layer on top here now, and I'm just going to blur the whole layer. So I'm going to go to the motion blur and drag this down so it's a child, so it's only applying to this one here, and then just increase the radius here so it covers the whole thing, and I can stretch that here, and I can even type in more. Notice, by the way, in all this I've got the angle set so it's in the right direction, so I could even say 200 here, and it blurs even further. But I think that's just a little bit too much at the moment, so I'm just going to leave that at 100 for now, but I can always add a bit more of that later if I want to. Because what I'm going to do now is take this mask here and hit Control I to invert it, and now paint back just the bits I want. So I go to a paintbrush, and I'm going to paint in white, and opacity here is 50%, that's okay, and hardness 0, Maybe I'll increase the hardness up to around about halfway. And then I can just paint in the blur. So I just paint here, add extra bits, and I can paint as much blur in any parts of the vehicle I want to add. So there you've got a more flexible blur. It's showing the blur into the dust being kicked up here as well, but I can make this a lot more custom. And because it's a mask, I can always paint in black to remove it. And if I want to be even fancier, then above all this, I'm going to put a radial blur, which blurs in circles. And I'm going to click on the front wheel there. You can't really see the back wheel, but click on that front wheel, then turn the angle here. So this is going to rotate that wheel until I've got a blur on there. Clearly I don't want all this. So again, I'm going to click on there, hit Control-I to invert it. So it's just this, and now I paint back on that with a paintbrush, painting in white. I can just bring it down a bit here and just paint into that till I get the radial blur that I want, and I can always go back and readjust that if I need to. So there we go, there's a bit more painterly way. Don't have to worry about trying to select everything, and the result is, I think, a fairly moving car. Thank you very much for watching.